Give an introduction to programming with Python. We're going to be using programming in Python quite scattered throughout the semester. And I thought with the snow day, it would be a convenient time to start that introduction. Okay, so I think the best way for each of you to use Python is to use a Google hosted version of it. There's all sorts of versions of Python. There's all sorts of libraries that need to be installed. You could install it on your own individual laptop, but it's different for every computer how to install everything that we will need, and that's really annoying. The programming we're going to be doing is not computationally intensive, so you can do it on a website and just fine. So I recommend Google Colab. It requires a Google account. I hope that's not a barrier for anyone. If it is, there are other options that I list in the assignment. But really, the best way, if at all possible, is to have a Google account or sign up for a Google account so that you can use Google Colab. There's no cost involved. So to get to Google Colab, I Google Colab and follow the link. Because I've used it several times, it might look slightly different for me than it does the first time you use it. The goal, however, is to start a new notebook. So when I start a new notebook, I get something that looks like this. You can name it something new. Somewhat jokingly, you could actually call it like Intro to Python or Python. Okay. So this introduction is intended for people that don't have any programming experience. If you have programming experience, that's awesome, and you can, lightly go through this material. But really, I want to try to get the people with no programming experience to see the way that programming is extremely similar to the mathematics you're familiar with. Okay, so I, in the assignment, describe going through this website. I give the link in the assignment. This is an informal introduction to using Python as a calculator. That is, using Python to do scientific calculations. So, for now, I just want to show you what it looks like to use the Google interface in a way that, you can do the first few steps. You can see what it looks like, so that you can get started and then finish everything that's on that, most everything that's on that informal introduction. So the way that Google Colab works with Python, you can type your commands into here. For example, that is a common command is printing something. In order to execute it, you actually have to click on the play button here. And it takes a half second to get started. And the result is printing 1. If you want to add more code, one way to do that is to click here, and you get a new text box. So if you want, here's a second command. Again, to play it, or to actually execute it, hitting enter doesn't execute it. You have to press the play button. You can see there's a green check mark here indicating that it executed. Now, saying x equals 1 doesn't actually display. It just stores 1 into a variable called x. So if you want, you can print x. And sure enough, it knows that x equals 1, and so it prints it. If you try something like print y, you'll get an error message because y is not something that it knows what it is. If you don't like this sort of thing hanging out, you can click over here to delete that box. Okay, so that is how you get started with executing. Again, there's a link that I direct you to in the assignment here that walks you through a bunch of different mathematical commands. There's also a section here on text called strings 3.1.2. This you can do if you want, or you can kind of just read through it lightly. It's not nearly as important for scientific programming because we don't do as much of this. So you can do that if you want or not. Your whatever you prefer. But then it picks up again 3.1.3 with something called lists. Do this. This is significantly more useful. What I mean by do it is the best way, I think, of learning programming is to type it with your own hand. So, for example, I can see the command down in the website reads like that. So I just execute exactly what it says and kind of confirm that, sure enough, I get the same answer. Just typing it with your own hand kind of helps you get used to the correct way to do things. So what I'm looking for you to do is to go through that process. That is the first assignment. Once you're done, you'll have pages and pages of that stuff filled in. In order to submit something, I want you to select File, Download, and then choose this option, download.py. It's dangerous, whatever. So that'll download a file that contains all the commands that you have as just plain text. So if I open it up, you can see that the print 1, x equals 1, print x, whatever, is all there. Okay, so that file, it's a text file. You can upload that to Brightspace. It's just confirmation that, to me, that you worked through this. Okay, so the detailed instructions are all provided on Brightspace. Go ahead and, if you, this is a good way to get introduced to how Python behaves in a way that's very similar to, say, like a calculator, or eventually you'll see a spreadsheet like Excel if you're familiar with that. But it is also, in the end, more sophisticated than either of those tools. I'll stop there.